Welcome to the Notes to My Legal Self AI Insights, where law and AI collide. Get ready to level up your legal game with us. We've got career advice, cutting-edge developments, mind-blowing legal tech, and more. Know someone making waves in the legal AI world? Nominate them, or even nominate yourself. We love courageous souls. And don't forget, we want to hear from you too. Ask questions, drop comments. Let's build a community of legal superheroes. But here's the deal. We're all about to have a blast. AI may be serious, but we're here to make it fun. So buckle up, get ready to power up, and let's embark on this exciting journey together. Now, let's introduce your fearless host, Olga Mack. Get ready to dive into the awesomeness of Notes to My Legal Self AI Insights. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I've been having so many AI conversations, and I've been doing so many presentations, and I keep thinking that I basically answer a lot of similar questions all day, every day. And so somebody who likes to build stuff that is scalable so I can relieve myself of doing the same job and doing a different job, I decided to do conversations, short conversations on LinkedIn around AI. And then I thought, for every mission I have, I need to have a partner. I love partners. Life is better with partners. When you have an amazing partner, it's definitely an experience of 1 + 1 much greater than 2. So I'm all about partners. And when I thought about it, I couldn't think of anyone better than Nicki to have a series of conversations with me around AI, because I think between the two of us, we have the United States covered. You are on the East Coast, I am here on the West Coast, going up and down, having similar conversations. So I thought, in an effort to unite this country, we should have a regular short conversation around AI best practices. What I'm envisioning is 20 minutes, 30 tops, to go deep down on a slice of it and take questions. And you are perfect for this. Nicole, please reintroduce yourself. I know many people know you pretty well, but I want to make sure there are some new folks here. They get to know you well before we go into the topic today, which is, should lawyers use ChatGPT? Go for it.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm looking forward to talking to you. It should be a great conversation. My name's Nicole Black. I am the head of SME and external education at MyCase and LawPay, which are Affinipay companies. I'm also an attorney, legal technology author, and journalist. And I think of myself as a bridge between law and tech for lawyers. And I love to educate lawyers about how to use emerging technologies through some of the books I've written, the articles that I write, and speaking to attorneys across the country. So this is another great way to do that.
I love it. Just exactly the same version, just on the East Coast. I love it. This is so awesome. Okay, so the real deep conversation I want to have today is around, should lawyers use ChatGPT? Because frankly, we are anticipating a lot of things to roll out by all kinds of vendors, from yours to mine to everybody else's. And I don't want to have a commercial conversation. When I want to have a conversation, ChatGPT is here. It's been making wave. It has been adopted very quickly, as very few other technologies have that we've seen in the last few decades. And it is available. It is here to stay, whether you love it or hate it, or somewhere in between. Should lawyers use it? I'm just curious. How do you think about it?
I think that right now lawyers need to use it with care, but even when they need to take steps to protect confidentiality. But even with that in mind, there are a host of different ways that lawyers can use it right now to streamline their practice and increase productivity and make it so that their workflows are just much more efficient. So I absolutely think they can use it. And I also think that what's really important is to keep an eye out for, this is rolling out really quickly. It's rolling out into all different products quickly. So there's a very good chance that the tools you already use in your practice, whether it's practice management software or contract management software or contract creation software, whatever the case may be, it's going to probably be rolled out into that very soon, if there hasn't yet been an announcement. So soon you'll be able to have it built into the tools you already use.
It's coming to towns near you. I think that's one. I completely agree with it. I tend to think of it, and I'm gonna, in a rare moment, I'm going to enter with fireworks and use a slide, because I usually never slide. I'm not a fan of slides, but sometimes it's just easier to show. And I talked a little bit about it. There are a lot of things that are simultaneously true. It is definitely not a legal tool. It was not created for lawyers specifically, and yet it could be so useful for lawyers. And in that way, it's no different from, I don't know, Google, LinkedIn, you name it. There's a lot of things that are not created for lawyers, by lawyers, with a safety net of a lawyer. And yet so much of it could be helpful in running your legal department, your solo practice, your mid practice, your big law, all kinds of things could be useful for. So I think of it as basically as another technology that is available that you can use. What are your thoughts about it, Nicole?
I think lawyers can absolutely use it in all different aspects of practice. It's just a matter of being able to use it in ways where you're not providing with confidential information, unless you're using a legal tool that has been developed by a company and you've vetted that company to understand how they're going to use your firm's data, how they're protecting your firm's data, and how they handle it when you use large language model tools like ChatGPT. But there are plenty of ways that you can use ChatGPT Plus, Google Bard, Bing, Claude, all these different tools that are out there in ways that can significantly help you practice law in however it is that you're practicing law, whether it's transactional or litigation. And there's a ton of different ways that you can use it. And I think we're going to talk about some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a comment from the audience that there are increasingly specific tools for lawyers, designed for lawyers with confidentiality and guardrails in mind. They have different pricing scales, and all of that is also coming in already here. So definitely available, maybe not necessarily the subject of this conversation, but that's also worth considering at which point you graduate from, say, something like Google and go to a more specific case law research that you can file with the court. So when you think of uses, how do you think about the universe of uses, and especially in this sort of safety, duties, risk, opportunities?
I think of a couple different categories of use cases right now where it really is incredibly useful. And that is working with documents, primarily in the summarizing capacity of summarizing data, or drafting documents, but not necessarily legal documents, but correspondence and that type of thing. And then there's working with documents, then there's brainstorming, there's also for educational purposes, right? So anytime that you're using these tools, you want to make sure that you have the foundational knowledge to really vet the responses you get, because you got to carefully review everything you get back from it. But at this point, you're still going to save yourself a lot of time because it is such an incredibly useful tool, even if you do have to be a little more careful about the review of the results that you get. And we're going to talk about a couple of the more specific use cases, but those are the general categories where I think that lawyers can use these tools. And I'm referring more to ChatGPT. When you start using those legal function tools, a lot of them are still in beta, and eventually they're going to actually provide specific use cases for you within whatever software you're using. And so that's going to partly constrain how you use them. But with general tools like Chat Plus, those are the top categories of use cases right now that I think are the most useful.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've experimented with a lot of non-legal documents, and specifically, and the results are quite interesting. I tend to see a lot of capabilities on quick research, even quick drafting, things like emails, even some sort of case strategy analysis. I love it for basically changing the language. And I don't mean from English to Spanish or Italian or whatever. I mean from nice and diplomatic to more firm and to the point. I love it for that. I am very cognizant about sort of security parts that you cannot put stuff in it. I also I was thinking about how do you I like frameworks, because frameworks allow you to systematically make good decisions. I'm a huge fan of frameworks. That's partially because I was an economics major in college. I looked through life in frameworks, but partially because I want to be consistent and internally consistent and guide my stakeholders in a direction that makes sense to everyone. I like to think of it as a continuum. Well, I use two frameworks that I think are useful here. One is the continuum framework, because I think when you're running your practice, whether it's department or law firm, you have a lot of opportunities with marketing and branding, client engagement, stuff that is basically public. And that is easier. I think that is a low risk, and then it increases from there as you do preliminary research and drafting. And then all the way on the other spectrum is giving legal advice and filing court papers. And I think as you're approaching that territory, you absolutely need to be talking to a vendor and be thinking about risks. And as you're talking about client communications, education type of stuff, I think you're definitely in the territory of safety, because those documents are going to be public anyway. And because a lot of lawyers actually spend quite a lot of time on business development and marketing and education, whether it's for all kinds of purposes, I do think you can use ChatGPT to help you out. Just again, because I love frameworks, I use another framework, which is a little bit, it's a modified ANSA quadrant, because I like to think of risks not just a continuum, but frequency. And so what I did, I mapped out, if I were to run my legal business, from content creation for education all the way to the upper right quadrant, court filing, which is legal advice. I think it's important to ask the question of risk and frequency, because the reality is if you are doing even low risk activity frequently, your risk increases. That's the reality of it. And I think having conversations with your stakeholders, whether it's folks who report to you, folks who you actually try to have successful, like your CEO, your board, whatever, I find that frameworks like that put risk in the framework allows for more structured conversations, give them a framework to make good decisions when you're not around, and you're not always around when they make those decisions, and then consistently end up with a good outcome. And so that's usually how I think about opportunity about ChatGPT, which is available, not legal tool per se, but definitely can streamline your practice. How do you guide folks, or how do you think about this opportunity? And especially, how do you make it a little bit more consistent and thoughtful in their daily life when you're not there guiding them all the way?
I think it's really important for lawyers to think about the things that they do on a regular basis. And I find both in my professional and personal life, I have a subscription to ChatGPT Plus, and whenever I find myself thinking, ugh, I don't think I necessarily want to deal with that. Why? Because it's annoying, because it's tedious, because all these, or I'm not quite sure how to respond, or anytime I have that initial inclination, I now think, can ChatGPT do that for me? Is there a way that I can use it and still, without providing proprietary or confidential information related to my work, that can help me achieve whatever I'm trying to achieve that I'm not wanting to deal with? And so I think that's a really useful way to think about it. So I find that I've used it, just like you said, tone. Sometimes when there's either I have to offer condolences to someone, or someone says something that kind of gets under my skin and I've got to deal with it, or it's really helpful to bounce things off of, because it doesn't have feelings, but it has great analytical capability. And it also has been trained upon the entire internet, which has all sorts of counseling and therapy documents and whatever on there. So it does a really good job of, surprisingly, because it's a computer, right, providing really well crafted responses to things. So I think it's really useful for that. And also brainstorming, it's fantastic. I think of it as like this legal assistant to either bounce things off of or help me do things I don't quite want to deal with. And so I think it's a much more loose framework than you had up there with all the quadrants.
Clearly, I have a lot of time on my hands to think about structured way of thinking about ChatGPT. I really actually think we should do separate episodes on all of the above, meaning the change of tone, the brainstorming, the sort of various strategies. I guess the reason you caught me a little bit off guard, you said it has no feelings. I'm joking. It was a bummer moment for me for a moment, because it actually does have a personality, enough of a personality. It keeps up with you. It's trained to please you. And the rational part of me realizes that it is just a bot, but what a bot it is. It is quite engaging. It always says the right things at the right time. And it's more consistently there for you than anyone else I know. So
100%.
let's find language to talk about this thing without insulting it.
I come from like Star Trek where the machines, once they start to have feelings, you're in trouble. Or maybe Battlestar Galactica, but whatever. So you never want the machines to have any feelings at this point. But I hear what you're saying. You do feel like it's
View feelings to objects. So
right.
I've been living in that reality, and my ancestors have been living in this reality for now thousands of years. I am absolutely fine finding the human in everyday objects. We're coming to the end because I love how this conversation been very focused. There's one question, and then I have maybe one question, and then we're gonna wrap up. And then if folks have suggestions about what we cover next time, what uses, in what context, I think we can do that as well. There is a question about conversation prompting. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it. I didn't plan to get into that conversation. I do think that it is topical here. Do you have any thoughts about best practices on prompting? And then, guess more importantly, do you think it is a skill that is worth perfecting, or is it a transitory point in time skill that will maybe go away?
I think my answer is both, right? I think it's important to learn about how to craft proper prompts now. I think it is going to be a very short leap until we get to the point where you don't need to know that. But just as you with Westlaw and Lexis needed to understand the Boolean search behind the natural language search, so that sometimes you could go in there and tweak it to get better results, or if you blog or have created your own web page, but more blogging. When you're blogging, it's helpful to be able to understand HTML so that if there's ever weird spacing in your blog post, you can go into the back end of it and remove some of those programming codes that got inserted that really shouldn't be there, that give it all those wonky paragraphs. So for the same reason, I think it's really important to understand right now how to do prompt generation, because it's going to give you better results now. And then when it gets to a point where you don't need to craft these really well-rounded prompts, you'll still be able to have the ability to tweak that on the other side of things, on the back end in the future. So I think it's important to learn, but I don't think it's going to be a long time. It's not going to be a skill that's going to change the results over time, just in the short term.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. The only thing I will add is that there are a few copilots already, plugins available on ChatGPT that you can use, and it will help. It will take it took my mediocre writing skills prompts to much different levels. In fact, that's how I improved, is by actually using a couple of copilots that help me put my prompts in the context and remind the bot to keep in mind a few questions and share who I am as a kind of from what point of view I'm writing and who my audience is and all that beautiful stuff that we normally think about when we write anything of value, but maybe not something we have thought about or I have thought about when I interact with a bot. And so that is very helpful. So I do think that it's useful to know. It may be as quickly as an important skill, it may as well quickly declining in important skills. And there are ways to augment it with plugins and bots that is very useful. We're coming to the end. I'm just curious, we can talk about ChatGPT for a long time, and we will go through various use cases in the next few episodes. But I'm curious if you have any sort of a best practice tip. If you do nothing else, what is the one thing that you recommend folks do to start being better users of this technology that is available today?
Tech competency, right? Attending things like this, attending CLEs at your local bar, reading articles, following people that write about this on LinkedIn and elsewhere. The more you learn about it, the more knowledgeable you're going to be and have that foundational knowledge that's going to set you up for future success with it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. I will be a little bit more specific here. I'll say there's a paid and unpaid version, and the difference is about $20 a month, which I can say is probably with confident that is not a significant difference in most people's lives who are practicing law. I'm very narrowly making that population a smaller pool. And it actually makes a big difference in your capabilities. And I'll maybe use another slide. If you go, it's right there in the upper part of the main interface, and you can see the things that I use the most. The things that I use the most is reading PDF, and being able to access websites that are not firewalled. That's basically what those plugins do. And that makes a massive difference. That makes your ability to have conversations with the document. It gives you an ability to have conversations with the website and ask about inferences and connecting the dots. And that capability is not included in the free version. And I believe that capability is very important. And on that spectrum of low risk to high risk, a lot of low risk capabilities are in that paid version. So that's my top tip.
Another thing I just add is if you're going to be talking about the paid version, I'm not sure if you've played around with the data analytics function. That's a new thing that was just rolled out into ChatGPT Plus. You have to turn it on in the back end in your settings. And once it's turned on, it appears there under plugins as an option to activate. And with that, you can upload a spreadsheet full of like thousands and thousands of pages of data. Like I uploaded a spreadsheet that had 1,700 or 2,700 responses to a 50 question survey, 2,700 people that replied to it, and it analyzed it. It's like that PDF Q&A, except you can do that with the data and the analytics, and it can provide with some fantastic information. So that's another thing you can do with that paid version that's really cool that just rolled out.
So on that thought, maybe you can show this next time. I use it for that reason too. Actually, I use it for surveys I do on LinkedIn, and my usage of LinkedIn is analyzed there. But you have a far more exciting use case for this. So I would love to see how you did it and maybe model it for everyone. I'm putting you on the spot next time, because both turning it on and actually uploading it, and it, for clarity, not confidential information, and then generating something of use. And it sounds like that's something that could be very useful for folks who are running their business, whether it's legal or not, or how you manage various sort of publicly available pieces of data to make better decisions daily. So good. I'm so glad we had a great conversation, Nicki, and maybe we'll continue next time.
Sounds good. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
And that brings us to the end of another thrilling episode on the Notes to My Legal Self AI Insights. We had a fantastic time exploring the fascinating intersection of law and AI with you. But hold on tight, because the adventure doesn't stop here. Stay connected with us on social media to continue the conversation, share your thoughts, and be part of our incredible community of legal enthusiasts. Together, we can inspire, learn, and make a real impact on the world of law and AI. If you enjoyed today's episode, we encourage you to share it with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else who could benefit from the exciting insights we discussed. Let's spread the knowledge and enthusiasm far and wide.